Let's tank Cenarius in the Emerald Nightmare on Mythic difficulty. Now, the strat we're using on this, guys, is the hard burn strat, which basically means we're just going to be killing Cenarius with only 2 sets of ads. So by the 3rd set of ads, we want to have pushed him into the last phase, so we're only going to deal with 2 sets of ads. Now, for these 2 sets of ads, we're just going to be cleansing wisps both times, which means that the first set of ads we're going to be dealing with is an ancient and 1 dragon, and the second set of ads will be a dragon, the wisps, because they've come back from the first set because we corrupted them, and a dryad. Now, for the ancient, all you need to make sure is you've got enough people under the boss to soak the double trample, and you're going to want to put some kind of raid CD on this. For the wisps or the corrupted wisps, all we're going to be doing is using a raid CD, a blood DK, mass grip, and like a vortex / cyclone, just to keep the wisps all together and blow them up and make sure no one's near them. Use a raid CD to make sure no one dies. The dryad, you just want to keep away from the boss and put some range and some mobile melee on it just to kill it quickly. And the 2 dragons, you're just going to have a 3rd tank in there, tanking them the opposite side of the raid, just making sure that the tank's dodging the breaths and keeping alive with 1 healer on him. Now for this, obviously you're going to need a dedicated healer to him. While he's tanking 1 dragon, you don't really need any heals, just a beacon off the Holy Paladin, and that should keep him up. But when it gets to 2 dragons, he needs a dedicated healer for the rest of the fight. Now, this tank is best done with a warrior just because of the high mobility, and they have a lot of defensives just to keep them up on their own, as well as the inspiring presence that they bring to the rest of the raid. For the other 2 tanks, you obviously got a blood DK for the mass grip, as well as another tank that does a lot of damage because it is a really tight DPS check, and if you do get that 3rd set of ads, you might as well either reset the boss or just call a wipe. Now, once you're hitting this last phase, again, like on Heroic, you need to be watching out for the ability Spear of Nightmares, and once again, all this is going to do, it's going to inflict 7.5 million physical damage, and it increases damage taken from Spears of Nightmare by 100% for 25 seconds. Then Nightmare spawns at the target location, and the size of the area is increased based on the damage taken from Spears of Nightmare, and this effect stacks. So what you want to do is reduce this damage as much as possible using a shield wall and an external, or you can use a bop or some kind of physical immunity, and this will just totally neglect the mechanic altogether. You also want to do a tank swap for each one, unless of course you're using a full-on immunity for the second one. And that's pretty much the whole strat. So let's talk about the little itty bitty parts of the fight that need looking at a little bit more. So we'll start with the dragon tanking. So there's going to be a dragon that spawns with the first set of ads and the second set of ads. Now all you need to do is obviously pick them up and tank them opposite the raid. What I neglected to mention is that when you get in 2, there is going to be a lot of damage going on yourself, so you're going to need a dedicated healer. We chose to use a Holy Paladin for this, but I believe a Mistweaver Monk is also pretty good at healing you. So what you want to be doing is tanking it always opposite the raid, or max distance you possibly can get from the raid, and you want to try and place your body facing opposite the raid, so you're trying to bait the breaths away from the center of the room as much as possible, and this goes for your healer as well. The best time to be clearing your stacks of Creeping Nightmare is every time the Drake is going to do a breath, and the breath is just going to turn, face someone randomly, hopefully it's yourself and you've baited it well enough and it's facing away, and then you're just going to run out, grab a green patch, and then either let the Drake come to you so it's not damaging you and you're not taking any damage, or you can kind of kite it around and position yourself in a way to pick up the second Drake which spawns when the second set of ads come. Now, the best way I found to do this was to plant yourself a little bit away from the second Drake and then just taunt heroic throw it, just so you got that little bit less damage coming onto yourself, and then you use 1 damage reduction to like smooth the damage coming into yourself for the healer to be prepared for, and then he can start bomb healing you. Because up to that point, the healer should really be either, if it's a Holy Paladin, and they're going to be stood in melee, helping soak the tramples from the Ancient ad, and if it's someone else, they still need to get over to you at this time, because as you're only 4 healing the fight, there's a lot of raid damage going out up until this point. That's pretty much all there is to the dragon tanking. Now for Cenarius tanking, in the first phase, you're going to be wanting to taunt swap on 2 stacks of the debuff Nightmare Blast, and all this does, it inflicts 1.5 million shadow damage and increases damage taken from Nightmare Blast by 100% for 45 seconds to enemies 30 yards in front of Cenarius. Obviously this effect's going to stack, so at 2 stacks, you just want to taunt swap, and on the second one, you're going to use a damage reduction ability. You also need to make sure you're not facing Cenarius toward any rain members, or any rain members are ever standing in front of Cenarius when this ability is going out. So just to recap, tank Cenarius near the Wisp side constantly to last phase, and obviously going to move him out of the patches of bad on the ground. Use big damage reductions on the second Nightmare Blast, and use immunities when possible on the Nightmare Spear in the last phase. Dragon Tank takes the dragon to the opposite side of the room at all times during the fight. Make sure you cleanse your stacks. Don't let them go above like 20-25 mark, because you're going to be taking excess damage and we're only 4 healing. And the best time to cleanse them is before the next set of ads come out and before going into the last phase. So just keep that in the back of your mind when doing this fight. Keep an eye on the stacks all the time. You don't want to take too much damage from it. Tank the Agent on top of Cenarius. Use a raid cooldown on it. Make sure you're cleaving off Cenarius onto it. Make sure it dies before the second set of stomps goes out. Tank the Dryad away from the boss. Have range swap to it. Kill it. Have a few melee with high mobility swap to it to help kill the Dryad in a reasonable time. Push the boss before the third set of ads. Wisps, have a Blood DK, Mass Grip them, and use a Vortex on them, blow them up. Use raid cooldowns when they're blowing up. Commanding Shout, Aura Mastery, SLTs, stuff like that, just to keep your raid from dying. Personals if you need to. On the Wisp blowing up, you're only going to get one set, so go nuts. Last phase is an absolute joke, so getting to the last phase is priority. Just survive, use all cooldowns to survive it, and pretty much you're going to have a kill, guys. I hope this guide helps a few out there. Please like, comment, and subscribe for my Mythic Cenarius kill. Should be out within the next week. Thanks for watching.